best for our children. Get off.
I just think you need a doctor.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most ridiculous battles in life aren't fought in boardrooms or on battlefields. Sometimes they happen in places you would never expect. And the story I'm about to talk about today proves exactly that. Because imagine this for a second. Two grown men, two fathers who love their kids. And the thing that pushes them to absolute insanity is not money, not politics, not even sports. It's a preschool. Yeah, seriously. When I first heard about this new comedy film called Preschool, I thought it was just another light family movie. But the more I looked into the story, the cast, and the chaos behind its premise, the more I realized something interesting. This movie isn't just about parenting. It's about how far parents are willing to go when competition gets out of control. And trust me, the situation escalates in ways that are both hilarious and completely absurd. The film is directed by Josh Duhamel, who many people already know from a wide range of Hollywood projects. But what makes this project even more interesting is that Duhamel isn't just directing the film, he's also starring in it. And if you've seen his previous work on the Buddy Games movies, you already know that he has a very specific comedic style. It's chaotic, slightly ridiculous, and often built around characters who push situations way further than they probably should. Preschool seems to follow that same energy. The story takes place in London and centers around two fathers who find themselves locked in a bizarre rivalry. One of those dads is played by Josh Duhamel himself. The other is played by British actor Michael Socha. At the beginning, everything seems fairly normal. Both fathers are simply trying to enroll their children in a prestigious preschool. But there's one problem. There's only one spot left, and that's when everything begins to spiral. What starts as a simple application process slowly transforms into an all-out competition, and not the kind of competition you would expect from responsible adults. This becomes something far more ridiculous. The two dads begin trying to outdo each other in increasingly over-the-top ways. Every step of the process turns into a new challenge. Every interaction becomes a mini-battle. And before long, the situation stops being about the kids entirely. It becomes about pride, about ego, about proving who is the better parent. Now, if you're a parent watching this, you might already recognize something familiar in this idea. Because while the movie exaggerates the situation for comedy, the underlying concept is actually very real. Parents today often feel enormous pressure when it comes to their children's education. Getting into the right school, the right program, the right environment. It can sometimes feel like a competition that never ends. And Preschool takes that pressure and turns it into a comedic explosion. The film features a strong supporting cast as well. Antonia Thomas joins the lineup alongside Charity Wakefield, Fenella Woolgar, and the legendary James Cosmo. Each character adds another layer to the chaos that builds around these two fathers, because as their rivalry intensifies, their families inevitably get pulled into the madness too. What makes the situation even funnier is how quickly everything escalates. What begins as polite competition gradually transforms into something much bigger. Plans become more elaborate, strategies become more ridiculous, and the line between responsible parenting and complete insanity becomes harder and harder to see. One of the things I personally find interesting about this story is how relatable it actually is beneath the comedy. At its core, Preschool is asking a simple question: how far would you go for your kids? Most parents would say they would do anything, but when you take that idea and push it to its absolute extreme, the result can become both hilarious and uncomfortable. And that's exactly where this film seems to live. Josh Duhamel himself explained why the story connected with him so strongly. As a father of two boys, he immediately recognized the emotional core of the script. According to Duhamel, anyone who has children understands the instinct to fight for their future. Parents constantly want to give their kids the best opportunities possible. But in this story, those instincts get pushed way beyond normal limits. Instead of quiet determination, the dads in this movie take things to the next level. Their rivalry becomes louder, more chaotic, and increasingly unpredictable. And that's where the comedy really begins to shine. The screenplay was written by Richard D'Ovidio and adapted from a story created by Richard and Nicole D'Ovidio. Their concept takes a very ordinary parenting situation and turns it into something wildly entertaining. The film was shot in the United Kingdom, with London serving as the main backdrop. The setting actually plays an important role in the story's tone. London's mix of tradition and modern life adds another interesting contrast to the film's themes. On one hand, you have the polished world of elite education. On the other hand, you have two fathers completely losing control over something that should have been simple. And watching that collision unfold is where much of the humor comes from. Another interesting detail about Preschool is how it reflects a growing cultural conversation. Around the world, parents are becoming more competitive about early childhood education. In some cities, getting into the right preschool can feel almost like applying to a top university. And that's the absurd reality the movie seems to be poking fun at. When the race for opportunity starts earlier and earlier, the pressure on parents can become overwhelming. Preschool takes that pressure and asks what happens when two people refuse to back down. The answer is pure chaos. As the rivalry between the two fathers grows, their behavior becomes increasingly unpredictable. Their attempts to impress the school administrators become more elaborate, and the situation quickly stops looking like responsible parenting. It starts looking more like a full-blown comedy war. What I find particularly interesting is that the film doesn't just rely on slapstick humor. There's also a layer of emotional truth beneath the jokes. Both fathers genuinely believe they are doing what is best for their children. They're not villains. They're not bad parents. They're just people who allowed competition to completely take over their judgment. And that's something many viewers will probably recognize. Because in real life, competition can easily blur the line between determination and obsession. Preschool seems to take that idea and run with it. Paramount Movies plans to release the film directly to VOD platforms in the United States starting March 17, 2026. That means audiences will be able to watch the film at home right away. And honestly, this type of comedy might be perfect for a home viewing experience. It's the kind of movie that invites laughter, conversation, and maybe even a little reflection about how ridiculous modern parenting culture can sometimes become. At the end of the day, Preschool isn't just about two fathers fighting over a school spot. It's about ego. It's about pressure. It's about the strange ways adulthood can turn something small into something enormous. And if the trailer is anything to go by, the film embraces that ridiculousness completely. What begins as a simple competition slowly turns into a wild chain reaction that pulls everyone involved into the madness. Families get involved. Plans fall apart, and the line between responsible parenting and total chaos disappears entirely. Honestly, I'm curious to see how audiences react to this one. Because comedy works best when it reflects something real. And if you've ever seen parents become overly competitive about their children's future, you might find parts of this story surprisingly familiar. Maybe not to this extreme, but close enough to recognize the truth behind the jokes. So now I'm curious about something. If you were in this situation and there was only one preschool spot left for your child, how far would you actually go to secure it? Would you stay calm and play fair? Or would the competition slowly pull you into the same kind of madness these characters experience? That's the kind of question that makes this movie fun to think about. Because while Preschool is clearly designed to make people laugh, it also holds up a mirror to the strange pressures modern parents sometimes face. And sometimes the best comedy comes from situations that feel just a little too real. Either way, this is definitely one of those comedies that seems ready to turn a very ordinary situation into something wildly entertaining. And if the film delivers on its premise, audiences might find themselves laughing at something they never expected to take so seriously. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay tuned, because here on ScreenRadar we're always keeping an eye on the next movie everyone will be talking about.